Story 1. I was having an allergic reaction to morphine when the doctor turned to my sister and said, "He's a bit of a drama queen, isn't he?" I couldn't breathe. What did she mean I was a drama queen? Let's constrict her breathing and see how much she panics then. I was furious with that doctor, but luckily for her, I was too busy trying not to asphyxiate to say anything. I was 13 at the time, just for reference, a literal child. Story 2. Someone told me that I have a very obsessive personality. I didn't understand what he meant until weeks later when I was still fixating on it. Story 3. Wise grandma said, "If you ever wonder whether something is right or wrong, just picture everyone doing it." Story 4. "You're the most sincere person I have ever met," said my college friend before leaving for summer break. He died in a car crash that summer. I never saw him again. Story 5. Good luck finding what we had with someone else. Nobody looks back on their life and remembers the nights they got plenty of sleep. Story 6. You are becoming increasingly engaged in gaming and gaining satisfaction from leveling up your character because you are not progressing in real life. He was completely correct. Story 7. A man once told me that my nose is too big for my face, and every time I look in the mirror, I remember that. Story 8. Because I felt uncomfortable taking my clothes off at a lake with my sister. She got mad, turned around and said, "The only reason you are in therapy is that nobody likes you." She had never said or asked anything about my therapy before that comment, nor during the 5 years I continued in therapy. This hit hard, perhaps due to what I had endured to be in therapy. I had experienced suicidal thoughts and immense guilt. Or maybe it was because I looked up to her, and she didn't know what I was going through. It was difficult. I was quite young and impressionable, and I will not forget. Story 9. When I was much younger, I completed a management qualification at college while on day release from work. A business consultant who came to do just one teaching session mentioned that 95% of people dislike and resist change. Over the past 48 years, I have found that to be true. I embrace change, especially when I can see the positives in it, but I certainly do not fear it. It is wonderful when I meet someone who is also in the 5%, like minds and all that. Story 10. I would rather not engage in such disrespectful talk about your father. My ex-husband and his mother left a voicemail telling me I am nothing but trash. Story 11. About 20 years ago, I was walking into a shop when a man walked out at the same time. I didn't see him approach, so being British, I said sorry and moved out of his way, expecting a thank you in return. Instead, he cheekily said, "You will be." I was speechless and have never forgotten that moment. Story 12. At 60, a girlfriend told me I am gorgeous. No one had ever said anything like that about me before. It wasn't a come on. She said I am a beautiful soul inside and out. Story 13. EW, I don't want to sit with you, said a girl in elementary school when an older friend she was with wanted us to sit together as a group during recess. I had never said or done anything to her. Story 14. Life is what happens after you make plans. When things go awry and I am frustrated, this perspective helps. Story 15. I am absolutely convinced the universe is conspiring for your happiness. A friend told me this about 10 years ago, and it catapulted me into a much more positive lifestyle. This has changed everything for me. I divorced my abusive ex-wife and created a better life for myself and my children. I found a better paying job. Everything isn't perfect, but it is so much better. Story 16. A fool and his money are soon parted. It's the truest and saddest statement. That's why payday loans and casinos are so successful. Story 17. I'm the child of a couple who stayed together for the sake of their children. It was a miserable experience. Shortly after my 18th birthday, my father decided he was finished and was leaving. He looked me in the face and said, "You're 18 now. My obligation has been fulfilled." Story 18. When I was pregnant with my first child, my best friend made a spontaneous comment. "That kid is going to have such a wonderful childhood. You were like an extra special auntie," said a child in my son's orchestra, where I volunteer. Two 16-year-old girls I spend time with at the same orchestra said, We were watching Beauty and the Beast, and we both agreed that you are just like Mrs. Potts. Story 19. In my mother's eulogy, she expressed that my father and she were the biggest fans of my brother and me. That was 4 years ago, and it still touches me. Story 20. My uncle's current wife has recently told me that I am a terrible person, a bad family member, and an inadequate mother who couldn't take care of a hamster, let alone a child. My kids love me, and I am trying to be the best mom I can be through the divorce from 2021. My grandfather essentially agreed with her today, which isn't helping, especially with all the health issues I am facing and the ongoing struggles with my ex overseeing my kids. He currently has primary custody. Story 21. I was feeling particularly low about my body because my fiancé wasn't giving me much attention for an extended period. Standing in lingerie and looking in the mirror, he walked in and asked what I was doing. I responded, looking at myself because I am stunning, to which he replied, "That's a little cocky for you, isn't it?" It's been almost 4 years since this incident, and it still lingers in my mind. Story 22. Not dramatic or anything, but definitely informed by behavior as an adult. A coworker of mine, as a teenager, didn't really buy the typical teenage items. He spent money on a new bed, socks, and shoes. Normally, you'd see a kid buying video games or similar things. His dad's advice was to spend money on anything that goes between you and the floor: shoes, socks, mattress, bed frame, couch, and tires. The rest will seem unimportant if you're warm, comfortable, and your joints don't hurt. As a guy approaching 40 who works a skilled trade on my feet for 12 to 14 hours a day, this was life-changing advice. Story 23. I have bradycardia. My heart rate was under 50 beats per minute. I went in for a routine electrocardiogram at my primary clinic. The doctor took one look at the printout and said, "This thing says you're having a heart attack." I wasn't, but it was a pretty unforgettable moment. Story 24. I'm proud of you, my father said once, and he is Asian. I never heard it again. It's recorded in my memory. Story 25. When I was around 10 or 11, I was singing during recess when a girl from my class turned to me and said, "No, keep singing. I feel much better about my own voice when I hear yours." She then laughed. It has been over 15 years, and more than 10 people have told me that I actually have a nice voice, but I still can't sing in front of most people. That moment made something inside me shrink a bit, and it has stayed with me ever since. Story 26. Don't just settle. Make sure you are happy. It is the first time a guy has said that to me, and it brought me to tears. Story 27. It is possible to commit no mistakes and still lose. That is not a weakness. That is life. Jean-Luc Picard. Story 28. You will not know the consequences of your decision until you have taken it. Decide what your heart says is right. Story 29. I was a wild teenager with no guidance or mentors. I started working at a local ski shop, and one of my older coworkers took me into the back office and told me I was smart and had a lot of potential. She believed in me. I had never received positive reinforcement or support, and often had negative thoughts about myself. Her one statement and belief in me changed my entire life. I began to focus on my degree, apply myself in school, sports, and jobs, and ended up doing pretty well for myself. Story 30. I don't buy from individuals in the LGBTQ+ community. Then that person proceeded to sit outside my job waiting for me to finish work. They kept showing up outside the store around closing time for months. My wonderful manager acted as security, escorting me to my car every evening and also offering to drive me home. Story 31. Do you ever miss America? Sometimes. Do not worry if you get homesick. We have Kentucky Fried Chicken here, where you can choose from 2 delicious flavors, original and extra crispy. Story 32. Let's promise that we will always hold each other's hands. And it is still the case. Of course, in a metaphorical way, not a physical one. Story 33. I'm high maintenance. I've always had a job, so I've had some money. I am educated and I learn how things work, even if I can't fix them myself. I help with physical chores, such as shoveling snow, even if I don't do it myself entirely. Sometimes, when I'm working hard and feeling miserable to accomplish something that needs to be done, that statement pops into my head, and I just zone out for a moment. Story 34. I hope everything works out for you. I'm here cheering you on. This is really the first time I have felt seen and supported, having someone there for me. Usually, it is always me doing the cheering for everyone else. Story 35. I don't love you. Why would I love you? Nobody will ever love you, my mother said. At least she was wrong. Story 36. The most important person in your life is you. If you do not look after yourself, how can you look after those you care about? Story 37. You have to love yourself before you can love others. I am starting to finally understand the meaning of this. Story 38. You will face difficult times, and it may feel overwhelming at moments. However, you will always rise again because that is your strength. In those tough moments, remember what I am saying now. You have always picked yourself up and pushed through challenges. I was 17 when my dad passed away, and we were in our boarding room smoking a joint around 2 p.m. Thank you, Jennifer. Story 39. My husband of 23 years told me he had never really loved me as he was leaving me for another woman. It was the worst pain of my life. Story 40. As a junior doctor, a patient told me that I was the kindest doctor she had ever had. Years later, a senior doctor advised me that the only expectation we should have of ourselves is to improve each day compared to the previous day. My goal has always been to be kind and to improve. That's it. Story 41. Freshman year of high school science, Katrina looked deep into my eyes and said, "Your eyes are so dark. I like them." Story 42. Be careful when entering relationships with individuals from different cultures, as they may have different expectations of women and appropriate behavior. Story 43. Backstory. When I was a pregnant teenager, I did the responsible thing. In my senior year, I had enough credits to graduate after my second quarter and work full-time so that I could support my child and have health benefits while the baby's father finished high school. A woman who was unable to get pregnant told me, "Girls who get pregnant should be forced to give their babies up for adoption because you will never be able to give that child the life I can give it." Although I do not judge, this woman was using church assistance services. I made a commitment to myself in that moment to never use any welfare or state services and that I would always provide the best life possible for my son. And I have. I was the first in my family to graduate from college. I never used any state or welfare services for me or any of my 3 children and have been a single mother for most years. I have gone from that teenage mother on minimum wage to a 6-figure income, so I would love to find her and say thank you. Story 44. You keep waiting for someone to sweep in and save you, but nobody is going to come until you are ready to ask for help. An ex said that to me in high school. I had a pretty rough home life and had significant issues letting people in back then. In retrospect, it was the kindest thing. I never realized until later how many people would have helped me if I had just been honest about everything. To this day, when I am going through a rough patch, I think about it. It helps remind me that as invisible as I feel sometimes, I am, in fact, seen. Story 45. Back in late 2013, a friend suggested that we should buy Bitcoin. I laughed at him and he didn't purchase any because of my reaction. Story 46. When my mom was listing the reasons why I don't deserve anything good in life to my dad while I was eating at the dinner table. Story 47. Everyone is difficult until proven otherwise. I was 18 when a guy told me that. I'm almost 51 and can still hear it clearly. Story 48. Your father never loved you anyway. My boyfriend's father said that because I never knew my father, and according to him, he never loved me. Story 49. Recently, I found motivation in the phrase, "I don't have to do it all. I just have to start." Thank you, ChatGPT, for the inspiration. Story 50. I joined the Territorial Army in college. When I asked my father if he had ever killed anyone in combat and, if so, how many, he replied, "Son, I never killed a man I didn't like. I never killed a man I liked. At the end of the day, I survived. I don't think it's in good taste to keep count of what that cost." I never asked this question again. Story 51. My ex-husband said to me on Mother's Day, I don't know why I'm with you. You know I don't love you, but I can't work out if I'm with you because I care about you or it's just that you do and pay for everything for me. Mind you, this was 12 months after her male-to-female transition in which I stuck by her and supported her. I never realized you could fall out of love with someone in an instant. Story 52. Why are you doing this? That was what my brother once asked me when I was in 10th grade while I was sharing my day. Back then, I was still somewhat childish and didn't think things through. I lacked maturity, as most kids do. I even called a girl in my class beggar as a reference to a chapter, not because of her financial situation, she was actually quite well off, but simply because my group of friends called her that, despite it making her uncomfortable. This prompted my brother's response, which truly opened my eyes. I realized that I wasn't acting consciously. I was just doing things without thinking and for the sake of it. His words reminded me that I needed to have a mental filter and to consider when I cross a line. I could easily leave a friend group, different from the aforementioned one, if they repeatedly did something that made me uncomfortable, despite my insistence on stopping. They used to throw my lunchbox around, even though it was empty, and they still broke it, which was a big deal since we couldn't afford to replace lunchboxes every month. This seemingly minor wake-up call still helps me become a better person each day, and I keep it in mind at all times to avoid getting carried away. From that moment on, I became devoted when it came to women. Story 54. My mom brought me to a doctor's appointment once, and there was a couple there with a child who was being whiny, which happens. I was teasing her about something, and she straight up told me, "If I had it my way, I would have had my tubes tied after your brother, but the doctor wouldn't do it because of my age." I think she was 18 at the time. I have an older sister, a brother, myself, and then my little brother. There is a 15-year gap between my sister and my little brother. She put me through a lot of traumatic experiences during my teenage years, but the knowledge that my little brother and I weren't wanted hurt the most. Story 55. My dad said I was lazy and trashy like my mother. I was 13 years old at the time and he was drunk. All because he had to wait 15 minutes to pick me up from church. And yes, he did pick me up drunk. Story 56. From our family friend whose seemingly very successful son committed suicide. In life, you have to learn how to hit the curveball. Story 57. My ex would constantly flirt with me and tell me I hold a special place in his heart and that he would probably always love me. I met up with him to discuss some things and catch up. He told me, "I realized that I probably wasn't in love with you all this time, but with the idea of you. You have too much mental struggle, and I know I wouldn't be able to take care of you the right way." Story 58. I had a crush on a girl when I was young. I had corrective surgery on my eye and had glasses since I was 4 years old. On the first day of trying contacts, she saw me and remarked, "Well, that was an improvement." I had never looked at myself that way before. For the first time, I understood my ugliness. After that, I never felt capable of speaking to anyone I felt interested in. I can only wear my glasses when I'm alone. It's been 15 years, and I can still remember the way she laughed at her own statement. Story 59. Sometimes the grass is greener on the other side because the other side uses more fertilizer. It made me rethink the old phrase, "If it's too good to be true, it probably is." While both phrases are valid, the latter is more depressing while the former adds a healthy level of skepticism and resonates differently. Story 60. Victor. Hey Dan, how do you know when you're doing well? Me. Stares blankly Victor. When you have haters. Story 61. There is not just one thing but one guy I will never forget and the things he would say. I'll call this guy Kevin. Kevin and I went to an international high school in Sweden. We had people from all over the world. Thailand, Vietnam, and Kevin was from Turkey. Kevin was not the smartest guy. He once told the girl from Vietnam that he would like an Asian wife because he thought Asian girls were obedient and submissive. He also tried to convince the class that bears hunt humans for sport. When asked what question someone studying political social science would ask, Kevin answered, "They would ask why women are so bad at playing football." He gave me compliments twice, saying I was smart and strong for a girl. Kevin tried to convince us that his stretch marks were battle scars. Just to name a few things, Kevin improved over the years, but I will never forget the things he said. Story 62. You look like a basset hound. An entire classroom of people laughed and agreed. That was 10 years ago, and I still can't unsee it. Story 63. You cry too much. No one will ever take you seriously. I was 17 at the Free State Challenge Academy, speaking to my guidance counselor. That was almost 20 years ago, and now everyone's problem with me is that I don't talk about anything. Fun fact. My body only allows me to cry at movies. Story 64. 2 children with my former partner. Took us a long time to completely separate. The turning point for me was when she said, "There used to be an us. Now there isn't." Story 65. I had a friend, with whom I still maintain a connection, in common with my ex. After I showed her a book for a class, she asked, "Are you sure you will be able to understand this kind of material?" Later, she said, "If you had found a girl with good self-esteem, you would have left her by now." Story 66. My therapist from ages 23 to 27, now that I am 30, told me to just show up. Showing up in life is 85% of the equation. Story 67. I was suffering from severe hypothermia after being left in an air-conditioned concrete cell with standing water for more than 12 hours, naked and wet. I begged him for a dry blanket, and he replied, "You have to be a good girl," while looking at my body, smiling and turning to walk away. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.